Did you know that there are college classes that are fun, let you explore your creative side, and challenge you to a thought provoking journey all at the same time? Well, welcome to From Grimm's Tales to Disney, brought to you by none other than Dr. Norbert. You will experience the thrill and wonderment of the quest of innocence and trust through Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, to the pain and agony of disappointment with beauty and love and maleficence. On your journey, you will discover why fairy tales have prevailed as timeless mirrors of our lives and the emotional roller coasters we all seem to ride from childhood to adulthood. This journey will last 15 weeks. A taste test brought to you by Dr. Norbert. A reading from one of Grimm's many beloved tales, Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there lived in a certain village a little country girl, the prettiest creature who was ever seen. Her mother was excessively fond of her, and her grandmother doted on her still more. This good woman had a little red riding hood made for her. It suited the girl so extremely well that everybody called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother, having made some cake, said to her, "Go, my dear, and see how your grandmother is doing, for I fear she has been very ill. Take her a cake and this little pot of butter." Little Red Riding Hood set out immediately to go to her grandmother, who lived in another village. As she was going through the woods, she met with a wolf, who had a very great mind to eat her up, but he dared not, because of some woodcutters working nearby in the forest. He asked her where she was going. The poor child, who did not know that it was dangerous to stay and talk to a wolf, said to him,
"I'm going to see my grandmother and carry her a cake and a little pot of butter from my mother."
"Does she live far off?" said the wolf.
"Oh, it is beyond the mill you see there at the first house in the village."
"Well," said the wolf, "and I'll go and see her too. I'll go this way and you go that, and we shall see who will be there first." The wolf ran as fast as he could, taking the shortest path, and the little girl took a roundabout way, entertaining herself by gathering nuts, running after butterflies, and gathering bouquets of little flowers. It was not long before the wolf arrived at the old woman's house. He knocked at the door. "Who's there?" "Your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf, counterfeiting her voice. "Who has brought you a cake and a little pot of butter sent you by mother." The good grandmother, who was in bed because she was somewhat ill, cried out, "Pull up the bobbin and the latch will go up." The wolf pulled the bobbin, and the door opened, and then he immediately fell upon the good woman and ate her up in a moment, for it had been more than 3 days since he had eaten. He then shut the door and got into the grandmother's bed, expecting Little Red Riding Hood, who came sometime afterwards and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" Little Red Riding Hood, hearing the big voice of the wolf, was at first afraid, but believing her grandmother had a cold and was hoarse, answered,
"It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who has brought you a cake and a little pot of butter mother sends you."
The wolf cried out to her, softening his voice as much as he could, "Pull the
bobbin and the latch will go up.
Little Red Riding Hood pulled the bobbin, and the door opened. The wolf, seeing her come in, said to her, hiding himself under the bedclothes, "Put the cake in the little pot butter pot and stool, and come and get into bed with me." Little Red Riding Hood took off her clothes and got into bed. She was greatly amazed to see how her grandmother looked in her night clothes, and said to her,
"Grandmother, what big arms you have!"
All the better to hug you with, my dear.
"Grandmother, what big legs you have!"
"All the better to run with, my child."
"Grandmother, what big ears you have!"
"All the better to hear with, my child."
"Grandmother, what big eyes you have!"
"All the better to see with, my child."
"Grandmother, what big teeth you've got!"
All the better to eat you up with.
And saying these words, the wicked wolf fell upon Little Red Riding Hood and ate her all up. Moral: children, especially attractive, well-bred young ladies, should never talk to strangers. For if they do so, they may well provide dinner for a wolf. I say wolf, but there are various kinds of wolves. There are also those who are charming, quiet, polite, unassuming, complacent, and sweet, who pursue young women at home and in the streets. And unfortunately, it is these gentle wolves who are the most dangerous ones of all. This is just one of many tales we will examine on our quest. So, what can you tell us based on this story? Has society's views of childhood innocence and beauty evolved? What makes stories like these still culturally relevant and keeps them timeless as measures of society's moral compass? Why do we find them entertaining and pleasing? And why do we sometimes enjoy horror? You can drop your answers in the comments. You will discover the answer to these questions and many others as you embark on developing and honing your critical thinking skills, employ your creativity, and present and display your magical talents in the forms of tests, group projects, papers, and a final. Of course, you know you will miss out on vibrant and enthusiastic class discussions that will impact your final grade should you decide to pursue absenteeism. Well, we welcome you to From Grimm's Tales to Disney and hope you do well on your quest and earn the grade only you can earn. Good luck! This podcast was sponsored by Dr. Norbert, the German Language and Literature Department. And in our next episode, we will engage in vibrant discussions with other scholars about the perspectives of various anthropologists, historians, folklorists, and psychologists as we continue our magical quest through the Romantic era to present of fairy tales. How do media and different modes of transmission shape cultural content? And how creative forms of expression work as vehicles of social and political values. See you next time.